gentlemen.
Good morning, Larry.
Hey. So, when Phil asked me to say something this morning, if I wouldn't mind being a keynote speaker, I thought to myself, what the heck can I talk about? Maybe I could talk about artificial intelligence and data mining and how that's going to affect the commercial aviation industry in the next 3 to 5 years. But Phil didn't seem to think that was going to work too well. So I thought, what's the next best subject I could talk about? And that was me. And
His favorite subject.
exactly. But I thought about what is exactly for this group, and I thought the subject matter for me was keeping the faith. And what I mean by keeping the faith, since I've been coming to this group, I've noticed people. I've learned a lot from people and different opinions and such as Robin made a statement one time about, why do things happen in certain ways? Why does God do things certain ways? And it's very true. I asked Don to play a song one time for Mercy Me about Even If, which is a song about the group, and sometimes they even question their faith. So I thought, I'm going to try something a little different today. Maybe try to be serious for a moment. So everybody that knows me knows that I always got a ball. I'm juggling. I'm doing something. And it starts from my roots. And let me give you a little background. I grew up in St. Louis. I had great parents, great grandparents, and grew up in the city. And the city I went to school was a Nativity Catholic school from day one. So my parents, being good Italians, family was everything. I went to school every day. And every day I went to school, I went to church. 6:30 in the morning, I was there before, go to school, have a mass, and then I'd actually go to school. But I've always grew up knowing Jesus Christ is our Savior. Always knew there was a God. And so my life was pretty simple. As a kid, I just played baseball during the summer, a lot of baseball, hockey in the wintertime. I could tell you, in my early days, I could give you stats on ball players. I could tell you their stats, what they were doing and such, because my life was school and sports. And I would go down to I'd walk 10 blocks to go to a diamond and play ball. My mom and dad let me stay up to 10 o'clock at night. They knew I was not going to do anything. So everything was great. I had it made. But I also had a sister. I'm going to try to do this right way. Unfortunately, we also, when we lived in the city, we moved to the county. And we moved to the county. It was kind of nice because we were able, my mom and dad, who saved every penny they had. And one thing I need to tell you about my mother and father. They were from Italy. And my dad spoke maybe 10 words of English, and by the time near the end, he maybe spoke 40, 50 words of English. So he was very much set in his ways, and he was very Italian. My mom came here when she was only 6 months old when her parents migrated from Sicily. So we actually grew up speaking Italian for the most part. I spoke English mainly at school and with other, friends of mine. So in April 1970, and I'll stop boring you in a minute, but in 1970, in April, my mom and dad saved enough money to build a ranch house in the north side in the county, Spanish Lake. Where's Robin? Spanish Lake. And it was kind of neat. And here we are, these blue-collar people that grew up in the city. Here we are in the county. And I am now going to be able to go to a new school. My sister had just graduated from high school and got a great job at an insurance company. So everything was starting to roll out. So my mom and dad take me to Our Lady of Loretto. And he said, and my dad in his broken English said, well, how do I need to do to get my son here? He says, well, you pay $3 a week and your son gets to go to school here. And my dad, in his way, says, just in case I don't make it to school, in case I don't make it to Mass on Sunday, how do I get you the $3? He says, well, if you don't get the $3, your son doesn't go to school that week. So my dad immediately said, you're going to public school. And that was great. So, did the whole 9 yards. So we had our life, and then August 7th came along. And I was just starting my second week in the school. And I get a page from the intercom system that said, please go to the administrative center. And I go down to the administrative center, and a friend of mine, a friend of the family, Ms. Bomarito, tells me, we need to go to your grandparents' house. So we go to my grandparents' house, and very cordial, it's about 30 minutes away, and as we're driving down there, everything was very cordial, remember. And then all of a sudden, as we approached, there are 3 police cars. And one of our neighbors indicated that my sister had taken a pistol and shot herself and took her life. So that, to me, ended sports for a while. And that moment on, I thought to myself, wow. People talk about climate change. In my opinion, climate change affected our family from that moment on. So, in my opinion, my parents losing a daughter at the age of 18 with a whole life still left to live. They say when a parent loses a child, it's devastating. And it really was for my parents. My parents, they blamed themselves. They blamed each other. My mom had suicidal thoughts. And then there was my grandparents. My grandparents were 79 and 78. That is a major stress to put on somebody like that. And then what about all of her family and all of her friends? You had all those people that actually gave the sympathy about, sorry for the loss. But in my mind, it was kind of like pity. Everybody felt sorry for you. So everybody's looking at you, especially all these Italians that we had as friends. And all of a sudden, our family was looked upon, maybe a little different in my mind. So for the next year, life wasn't pretty. Then we went through the thing. No more sports for me. I prayed. But you know what? My parents didn't want to go to church. So we didn't go to church. So for the next year, I'd say, it was very difficult. But I thought to myself, you know what? Everybody's looking at me at the age of 15 and a half. I am like everything to my parents and to my grandparents. I thought to myself, I'm tired of this. I really am tired of this. So I decided, I got my temporary driver's license. So I said, now I want to get closer to my grandparents. So I did. As I got closer to my grandparents, I got to know them quite well. Now they live 30 minutes away. And this house that my mom and dad had just purchased, about a year and a half earlier, which was gorgeous, there was still a lot of land around. So as I got to know my grandparent, I had my grandfather and I went fishing. I never fished, but it was a great time. And then at one time, my grandmother, while at our house, said something at the age of 79. You know what? I would love to have a house like this. I would love to have a house like this. He says, you know what? If I had a house and I lived in it for one day, I would die happy. And I thought to myself, Grandma, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So, against the will of my mom and dad and my grandfather, I actually talked everybody into, let's build a house. And so they built that house. And when they built that house, all the effort, all the energy, all the effort was now off of my sister onto this house. So that was all great. And then as I got to deal with my grandparents, I got to talk to my grandfather. My grandfather used to be very big in the church. Knights of Columbus, he was a big guy. And all of a sudden he just stopped. So I asked him one time, why? Why did you no longer go to church? And his opinion was, well, there was a situation one time where my mom was supposedly baptized in Italy, and they didn't believe it here, and he told them, no, she's already been baptized, and they still baptized her. And he just got livid that the church did not believe him. So he said, that's it, I'm out. Then I thought about my dad and that $3, not paying that $3. That got rid of the faith of my dad. I think my grandfather, he stopped going to church and believing in God because of the fact of what a priest said to him. And so I thought to myself, that's got to change. So gradually with this house, everything started to look decent. I started to go to church with my grandfather. Then my grandmother joined. Then my mom and dad joined. And all of a sudden things changed. And it was great. It was fabulous. And because of that, the church was kind of important. The thing is, to me, I never lost faith in Jesus. I never lost faith in God. And I'm glad I was able to help my grandparents and my parents. Matter of fact, as time went on, I started working 3 jobs. Because my mom and dad they had a lot of money. They were always scraping. So I thought, I really don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. So I took 2 jobs, 3 jobs at the age of 16. And you know what? The best thing I ever did. I saved money. I didn't want to deal with my parents as far as cost of anything. I paid my own, on my way for everything. But one thing I did do, I opened a produce business called Larry's Produce. And it was a farmer's market. And on the weekend, I bought produce. And I had my dad join me. And to my dad, that was huge. We started bonding even more. Always great, but we bonded big time. At this point, my mom is taking care of my grandmother. So this went on. So everything is just working out, okay? My sister is still a memory every day in everybody's mind. But we're moving on. But then all of a sudden, with the loss of my grandfather, my grandmother, and now I got to a point where I'm ready to graduate from college, and what am I going to do? So I decided I really wanted to be in the aviation business. I wanted to work for TWA. And so I thought, I put applications in and for reservations for part-time. I never even got an interview. And all of a sudden I understand that they kept on hiring people, and they wouldn't even pick me. And one day, 1 year from the day my grandfather passed away, I was just like, you know what? I am sick and tired of this. I am sick and tired. And I was just, because the loss of my grandfather, the fact that I wasn't getting anywhere with this job, nobody's listening to me, I walked into the TWA reservation office at 105 Northwest Plaza in St. Louis. And I said, and I very politely, business-oriented, diplomatically asked for the hiring person. And the receptionist was kind of like, we don't do that. I said, well, I'm not leaving until we do this. She came out, Miss Judy Davis listened to my story that I was ready to graduate. And next thing you know, I had an interview, I got hired as part-time, and I moved up the ladder. But I told that part of the story because my grandfather was there with me. And the other part of the story is, every year every year I would take my parents on a trip to buy anything to keep their mind off my sister. And so what was great about it is that all the relatives in Italy, which I had never met, my dad had brothers and sisters in Italy, and with the TW benefits, every year I took them to Italy. I got to know all my relatives out there, and it was fabulous. And during the job, I moved to Atlanta in 1995. In 1993 and in 1995, I told my parents, why don't you move from St. Louis to warmer weather? And they said, absolutely. We built a house less than a mile away. And every morning before I go to work, I go see my parents. I have no idea why I'm crying at this point. but they would go to church every day. Every day. We moved down here. I said, when Gail and I bought our house, I didn't even tell my parents. We drove back up to Atlanta and said, by the way, Mom and Dad, you're moving to the Villages. They said, whatever you want to do. Because my mom and dad, I did their finances since at the age of 15. So I took care of everything for them. Bottom line is, I'm telling you all this because the loss of my sister was devastating, as you can tell. But I never lost faith. I always had God. It wasn't a moment where I grew up, where I hear people tell the story all the time about, I found Jesus again, and that's great that people do. I never had that. I've always had Jesus in my heart. I questioned him for a very short time on the loss of my sister. But I knew that maybe this was a way, in the end, I got to know my parents even better. I became a parent, if you will. My grandparents, which I had seen them from, once a month. My grandmother was a great cook. Couldn't wait to do that. To see them every day. They were great people. That movement to help my grandfather being there and being insistent with TWA, that was a big move. And the last thing I want to say about all this is that fast forward, I'm down here and I'm now doing consulting work. And I was going to go on February 6, 2013. I was going to take a trip to Tampa to meet with the CEO of Orbitz. Now, Orbitz is a huge company, and I do like $30 million worth of business with them. And he had a house in Tampa, and I said, hey, let's meet somewhere. So we decided, hey, let's meet at the Outback, which is in Wesley Chapel, which is right off the I-75. So at the time, Gail and I have this convertible, a Mercedes SL convertible. It was great in 1980. I had that car looking spotless. I mean, I had just ordered a radio now for $20 because I kept that car pumped. So I was going to impress this guy. So I thought, I want to drive this car. It's a beautiful day, by the way. So I had the top down. I'm supposed to meet him at 11 o'clock. I'm driving my usually 80, and I get probably about 15 minutes away. But I have like 35 minutes or maybe even 45 minutes. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to slow down. I'm going to mind my own business in the right lane, go 70 miles an hour. I had the music blaring because I do like to listen to music. And I'm thinking I'll take my time. And all of a sudden, in the left lane comes an 18-wheel truck. And this 18-wheel truck comes. And he thinks he's past me. And here I am going my boring 70 miles an hour with the top down, with the windows up. And all of a sudden, he thinks he's past me. And he starts moving to the right lane. And next thing you know, he hits my car, smashes the side view mirror. Luckily, I have the window up, hits right into the window. That's gone. The car is moved in front of the truck, and he's pushing me down the road sideways. And I'm right by the grill. And I'm thinking, my life's over. My life's over. So the tires are going, next thing you know, and I'm thinking to myself, oh God, oh God, oh God. I know you're there. And I said to myself, you know what? Lord, I've been a good guy all my life. I think I have. I thought, you know what? I'm gonna die on a Tuesday morning. And here I am. I've been a great kid. I've been a great son. I never did anything, drugs or anything. And I'm gonna die here. But if this is your will, I'm on. The truck stops. I hit the concrete barrier 3 times and turn around, ending up facing oncoming traffic, which is now stopped. And I'm going like this, and I only had one little finger bruised, and that was it. So I'm thinking God works in mysterious ways, and I know He's there for me. And so I don't have a come to Jesus moment. I have a keeping the faith moment. So, having said that, sorry, broke up a little bit, but hope my message got across to you.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you very much.